Welcome, everybody, to this week's episode. We really appreciate you joining us. This podcast really shows us how we can all learn, live, and thrive off of each other. By sharing our knowledge through our conversations, we will impart some knowledge whilst learning ourselves how to progress even further. Here is your host.
Hello and welcome. This is Mary Scott. A big welcome to you. You probably heard Sandy and I chatting a little bit before we went, because Facebook doesn't always tell us when we're live. Anyway, a big, I've got things happening here. Now I've got feedback. I am so sorry. Just give me a sec. Now I had myself talking in the other screen, which is fabulous. You're on the Personal Development Hub. This is Mary Scott, and my guest today is Sandy Simmons, who is an amazing, I've just been learning about this woman. I've known Sandy for some time, and she is a consultant and an educator with over 30 years, get this, 30 years, yes, that's it, 3-0.
Yep.
With 30 years experience in the health and wellness field, and that covers a whole range of things. And I'm delighted to have Sandy, but first of all, if you're here watching, do put in the comments, hello to Sandy, just in case she's a bit nervous, but I think she's a seasoned person at this, so maybe not. And be sure and ask questions and give her lots of accolades, because it's good for people to know you're listening and that they see you. Welcome, Sandy, to you. Hello. That was a bit long-winded, wasn't it?
That is absolutely fine. Well, thank you for the welcome, and thank you for having me on to have a bit of a chat.
Yeah, that's good. I was just saying before we went live, I want to jump in that river. It looks gorgeous. Is that somewhere you know?
Yes, it's up at Warburton, which is in Melbourne, out to the bottom of the and around the back of the Dandenong Ranges.
For those that don't live in Australia, do you want to say more so we're all on the same page? I know where Warburton is. It's a beautiful part of the world.
Yes, so you come to Melbourne, down the bottom there, apart from Tasmania, and then you head out to the hills that you can see in the east. And so I live sort of just to, if I'm looking at it, coming up from the bottom of Australia to the left, at the bottom of Mount Dandenong.
There you go.
And around the back are some beautiful, patches. And there's a place called Warburton, and this is the river that runs through Warburton. Yeah.
That is fascinating. And there used to be a health retreat there. Is that still there?
Oh, goodness, no, that went years ago.
There you go. I'm showing my age.
Yeah, no, it would be good, but no, it didn't get the funding and wasn't sustainable. So, and no one's picked it up. Actually, there's a big hospital there too, and it's empty.
Oh, wow. That's interesting, isn't
it?
Yeah. So let's go back to you,
yes,
because you're our guest today.
Thank you.
And I usually ask guests this: when did you first start thinking that personal development was a good idea?
Oh, goodness me. Personal development came a little bit later to me. When I say later, it wasn't in my 20s, it was in my 30s. I call that later because I introduced my kids to it a lot earlier. I had a girlfriend that just invited me along to a few things. And so in my 30s, I went to quite a number of different people, I guess, to do courses. And I started to think, well, there's much more to life than what I think, isn't there?
And broaden your horizons, you're saying.
It certainly did. So that really got me. Actually, most of my life, I never felt like I fitted in, to be honest. And I was always looking for, like, there's got to be more, that, not knowing where to go, because we're talking
couple of years ago.
Just a few years ago, when all this sort of started. And then I came across a couple of people, and one guy in particular, William Whitecloud. I don't know if you've heard of him, but we became good friends. And then he was doing a lot of his courses, and I used to support him on those and delved right into it then and got to know lots more, read lots of books and thought, okay, I'm going on down this track. So it certainly changed my whole focus on, what I believed and where I knew I could go. Yeah.
That's amazing. And you said a little bit about you introduced your children to it a bit earlier. Would you like to share something about that?
Yeah, so it wouldn't have been till my, got to think now, early 40s. And my daughter became, she would have been, I don't know, late teens, early 20s. And she wanted to, she started to become interested in what I was doing. So she came along to a lot of I used to run the Melbourne group for William, and she came along, and then I finished my 2-year course with him, my own personal journey, and she's put her hand up and did 2 years.
Wow.
Me. So she was in her, early to mid 20s. My son didn't do courses. He already was born with a bit more wisdom than what we were. And yeah, he sort of embraces that in his life. So they got an early introduction. They got an early introduction to natural therapies, to everything. So their horizons are quite broadened to a lot of their friends.
That's fantastic. And how much do you think, like when they were younger, you were totally immersed by the sound of it in William Whitecloud's work? And how much do you believe that filtered through to your children? I'm guessing you wouldn't have been actively teaching them, but you would have been modeling a particular way and values and everything, would you not?
Yes, and it only came to me, I guess, since they've both now got partners and children themselves, small children, that I can now observe some of the things that have obviously rubbed off and they've picked up along the way. And that, it's not just the personal development, it's the health side too. So, I'm very blessed that they're both, now they've got their own children starting to really think and embrace it again, because, we do this in our lives. We're not all perfect all the time.
Oh, come on. Eddie, you would be, wouldn't you?
Oh, yes, absolutely.
That's such an interesting thing to say. We're not all perfect. I love that.
Yeah.
And are you influencing your grandchildren? Do you believe in that generational influence for positivity and good mindset?
Yes, I've had a bit of an influence on my daughter-in-law. Now, my son and daughter-in-law live here about 20 minutes from me, 15, 20 minutes. So that's a different kettle of fish, and they've only got a 2-year-old and a little boy who was only born 3 weeks ago.
Oh, that's right.
So,
lovely.
Yes, so they're only newbies, but my daughter lives in England. Her husband didn't like it in Australia, so he took them back to England, and they're 7 and 5. My daughter has been so busy, she's sort of forgotten a few things, but I keep reminding her. But she's very much on the health side, but other things, she's been too busy to sort of stop and think about what she's actually doing and embrace some of the journey she learnt before. But that's what happens in life, but if you've got some grounding, you can always come back to it.
Absolutely. It's a bit like riding a bike, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
I'm sure if I picked a bike up now, I could ride it quite well. But I haven't ridden a bike for several years. It sounds simple, doesn't it, when you put it like that? But now I happen to know that you spent some time, I think it was last year, in England. And you would have impacted these little people, I'm sure.
Oh, I was teaching them all sorts of things. I looked after them in the school holidays, in the summer holidays, because her husband's parents have passed away, unfortunately. So there's me and their granddad here who wasn't well, so he didn't come with me. But I taught them all sorts of things, how to stick a straw through a potato, to It's just concentration. And kids are very good at that. And to, holding stones and feeling the energy, they're very blessed where they live. They live up in Yorkshire, but they're back onto a farm. So we
Wow.
see all the, we go and see the animals, and I had a ball teaching them all sorts of different things.
So what's the difference then? Because I know that we're into October and that was last year, but I'm sure it's fresh in your mind. How easy is it to teach? Because you teach a lot of adults about their health. How easy is it to teach children, those little ones, and then adults as you do? You mostly teach adults, correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So tell me what you notice about the learning process from those two groups of people.
Look, children soak up whatever it is you want to tell them until, they get to teenagers. So they're modelling you, I'd be doing something and they'd say, Nana, can we do that too, or something, so they just want to do what you're doing. So very easy. In actual fact, you've got to be careful what you do teach them. So that's another story. With adults, they have to want to do it. If they're not at that point where they've got into self-development, they're probably, and the mind and thinking all about that, they're probably not going to be in the space where they feel comfortable to change their lifestyle and what they're doing. Because, as you know, it all comes back to beliefs. And the beliefs that we take on from our family are not necessarily the beliefs we want to keep. So there's a lot of that work that I do with adults quite often before we even head into their health, because I don't like to, when I'm educating, I don't like to tell them what they have to do. I want to work with them and get them to sort of come up with some of it as well, so that it's so much easier for them then. But you have to get people at the right time.
Yeah.
The timing
is everything.
Timing is everything.
Ways,
Exactly.
in more ways than one. I think that's interesting, isn't it?
Yeah,
Whereas the kids are eager beavers and they want to get in and they want to learn, and can I do that? Do you think, or is it your observation, is probably a better question, that role modeling is something that parents and grandparents consider? Or do you think they learn by the mistakes that they've made, and then they go, oh my gosh, I shouldn't have said that then?
Yeah, I think grandparents are much more aware of those things. There's the few that aren't, but the majority, I think, of grandparents, because they start to look at their children and they observe them and they go, oops. And then, you have the little, not arguments, but discussions, because you say something to your son or daughter and say, that's probably not a good thing to be showing your children, and they don't get it.
Yeah, conflict with generations.
Yeah, one of the things I was doing years ago was when I was talking to people about preconception and getting their values correct, and did they actually want to have children, and was it just an expectation, all those other aspects that come into it. Sometimes they went and talked to their parents about this, if they were open enough. They would go and speak to them, and then I might even have a session with the grandparents or the to-be grandparents to, maybe not put the kids under pressure, and what is it that you really want for them? And obviously it's for them to be happy, but don't put expectations on them. So there's so much we can always learn. There's so much.
Oh, absolutely. If you are watching live today, thank you so much. This is Mary Scott. We're in the Personal Development Hub. And my guest today is Sandy Simmons, and we are learning. We are talking about generational health, personal development, a whole range of things. Do say hello, do ask some questions, do give some comments. Now, Sandy, I was thinking about this and what you do and the difference that you make. Where did you learn all this? How did you get into this? Like, were your parents great role models? Where did all this come from?
No, well, I was born in London, and we came here as migrants, and then there was only 4 of us because we come from very big families. So in a way, it was a blessing because I didn't have to fit into any mould of the rest of the family. My parents struggled, as a lot of my, parents who migrated didn't realise what they were actually doing. And they'd had a rough time during the war. So, they were dealing with their own stuff. But it left myself and my sister open to exploring other avenues that perhaps if we were still back in England, we would have been guided in a different direction. Because here we weren't really guided, we guided ourselves.
How did you do that? Tell me more about
Yeah, well, for me, health was becoming my main concern because I'd always had problems with my gut. Nobody'd ever diagnosed anything. And then I had lots of problems in my 20s with my skin. I had the top skin specialist in Melbourne put me on tetracycline, which is a antibiotic, for 7 years.
Oh my goodness.
Which upset my gut even further, to the point where I could only eat white rice and potato. Nothing else would stay in my system. Doctors didn't think there was anything wrong with me. So
really,
I then started, right, I need to go back to the naturopath I went to. I need to explore other avenues. And that's what happened. And I started to delved in for 10 years into different ways of getting myself back on track, but nothing ever gelled and stayed. It was like, yeah, but I can't stay on that forever, what I was doing, and yes, that made me feel better, but I can't do that the rest of my life. Take my own meals with me everywhere, et cetera, et cetera. So it wasn't until I was studying, I decided to study naturopathy and nutrition, herbs. And I was sort of, what was I? Early 40s, 40-ish, early 40s. And I said to myself, I'm not going to go and see anybody else. I'm going to hear a name one day, and I will hear it, and I will know that's the next person I have to go to, and I won't need to go to anyone else. So sure enough, I don't know, it would have been months later, and I was listening to a conversation behind me, and they said this name, and I thought, I just turned around and said, sorry, who's that you're talking about? I went along to have a consultation. I went to an information night. I went to a consultation, and I knew when I walked in there that I would work with him. And I have done for 25 years.
Wow, that's amazing. And so I know I interrupted, I'm sorry.
No.
I've got a question about this,
Yes, go for it.
Trust your gut, they say.
Yeah.
Believe what the gut's telling you.
Mm-hmm.
Is there any correlation for you about that experience? Because that, like, what was it? White rice and potatoes.
Yeah.
I don't even know if I'd last a day on that.
Oh, I was doing it for weeks, and I was trying to get pregnant too. So hence why I got into the pregnancy area as well later on. Stress related. I had a really stressful job in the city. But beside that, when I walked in to see the scientist that I've been working with, doctor from Russia, it was like something sat on my shoulder and said, well, this is where you're going to be working in a year or so. And I went, really? But I wasn't well. I was really a bit too sick, but I remember that. You know how you remember certain things?
Yeah.
It was like listening to myself, because I think I'd had enough of trying so many different things. And I just thought, no, I will hear a name. It just came to me. So it's allowing, once you get into the personal development and you start to listen to yourself more and you start to become more of who you are, and it can be a long journey. Mine was not very quick at all. And it's still going to some extent. You learn to listen a little bit more to what's going to help you, not what you think is everyone else is saying to you is going to help you. You need to really separate those two things into understanding your own self and your own body to give you the signals and the signs to say, this is what you need to do, not what others think you need to do.
So you're differentiating, aren't you, from
You have
the
to differentiate.
cognitive thinking process, left brain process, to trusting what you need innately for yourself. Have I heard that correctly?
Exactly.
So then we can draw the bow, can we? The whole metaphysical aspect of you had a problem with your gut. Does that mean that you then trusted your gut more? I know it's a bit of a play on words, but
yes, no, I
think of
understand.
the whole metaphysical aspect.
Yes, I trusted myself more. Yes, because I used to get little butterflies and things, you know, when you get butterflies and sensations in the gut, because that's what they mean sometimes when people feel things. Yes, but your gut and your mind are connected so very close. You know, there's a lot in health that links the two, but they are linked. So really it's what's firing off up here is what's making this, you know, get some little flutters or something going on, because it's saying it's true.
That's fantastic.
True for you.
And so do you think then that you need to have a certain amount of awareness to actually get that connection? What's your feeling about all that?
Yeah, no, I think we all have that awareness. I think it's just being dumbed down, if that's the right way to put it. You know, the way that we've been conditioned, the way we've gone through school, the way we're brought up. And I'm talking about my generation. You know, back in those days, you would basically, you know, you just followed this road and that was it. And the conditioning overlays things. You know, I can remember when I was very young, I used to see in people's bodies, and my mother told me to shut up because I was seeing things. But, or, you know, I was using too much imagination, I think she used to say. And I used to keep saying, no, there's something going on there. And she used to get quite upset with me at times. And then slowly I let it go because I thought, well, no one's listening to me.
Has that come back?
Yes. That has.
How beautiful.
So that's come back. And we all have these abilities. I believe we all have different types of abilities, but we do have them. But they are, you know, they used to talk a lot about peeling the onion. And that, in a way, that analogy is correct, because when I was talking before about our beliefs and our own feelings, our own beliefs, our own purpose in life is different to our parents. It's not, we don't have to copy everything that they've done. We don't have to be, I call it robotic-like, and just, you know, move through life and do this, that, and the other, and that's it. We have to let some of those things go and go, well, you know, and when I say let them go, we can't let them go and get rid of them, wash them off and hope they go down the river. We just let them recede into the background, because they're all part of what makes us who we are. So it's just a matter of letting the louder voice of who you really are come forward, and what you want to do, what your beliefs are. And, you know, if you choose to have a child or not have a child, that's your choice. It's nobody else's choice. If you choose to go for this job, you know, everyone says, oh, you're mad, you go for it. It's all those things. But that comes with the self-development, doesn't it? Because, you know, that's why we do self-development, to get the courage and everything else that goes along with that, to be able to step outside of who we've been.
That's lovely. I like that. Step outside who we've been.
Yes.
And I was interested to hear what you said. I'm not sure whether you said numbing yourself down or dumbing yourself down because of overlaying conditioning. And here you were absolutely talented, seeing things, and you wanted to share it, and your mother thought you had an overactive imagination. And then you said you believe everyone has the awareness. But what happens then, do you think, if if a little person's been numbed down, or sat on or squashed or whatever, how then, in your experience,
Mm.
can you set them free to, because I'm thinking fast that I'm speaking, because what I was going to say is that it's my impression that a lot of people from being numbed down, then kind of, they go to sleep.
Yes.
So they're not awake. And what I mean by that, I know that you know what I mean.
Yeah.
I'm not sure about people listening.
Yes.
But what I mean is that become desensitized, you become tuned out, disassociated, all of those things, even get to a state of resignation where you no longer are participating. So how do you think, from your perspective, we can wake more people up?
It's something that's individual. How can we wake people up? I mean, I'm always trying to wake people up. Whether I go about it the right way or not, I don't know. I'm now trying to get to groups instead of one-on-ones. That's one way we can get to the collective more. I think people have their own individual things that happen to them. And if we get them at that particular time, because we were talking about timing before, or it dawns on them and then they come and talk to you, that's when they get the breakthroughs.
If you've got to be on your knees, do you mean?
Sorry?
Do you have to be on your knees? You have to be at a particular point in your life.
Yeah, yes and no. I mean, nobody wants to do what I did. I had a near-death experience when I was about 43, so 44. So that really woke me up. But you know, I'm going to give you something from the other day. Like my sister, I'm sure she won't mind me. You don't know who she is. She only just realised. And she does self-development. She works with soul journeys and all sorts. But she said, I have just realised that I have not really integrated what I do and say into me. Yeah.
Oh, wow. What a great thing to realise.
It's the penny that's got to drop. You can do heaps and heaps of personal development courses, but not really have that penny drop so that you are now feeling, you know. And when I say feeling, I mean, you know, let's say, for instance, you know you shouldn't be eating all this food because it's not helping you, but you can't help it. You're in a bit of a circular thing and everything. And then all of a sudden you throw up. And, after about the fourth time, the penny might drop and say, I don't think that's good for me. And this is why it's a journey, isn't it? It doesn't matter if it's about food or whether it's about maybe even something that's happened in your life and that keeps repeating with different people. And suddenly, after a few times, you go, I think I've got that. I think personally, this is my thoughts, is that we need to experience things to integrate them. We can read all we like, and for some people, they may take that on board, but there's few. I think majority of people tend to experience things and then, the big changes happen.
Oh, that's brilliant. If you are watching this is Mary Scott on the Personal Development Hub. My guest today is Sandy Simmons, and I'm going to jump straight back to her, but please put things in the comments because I've got this burning question.
Okay.
I think you've been listening to me about that integration. To know a thing and not to do is not to know. That's what you're saying. But you're also saying, and I love this, I get excited about this because people say, I'm doing all these things and I'm just not getting it. And I'm sure you've heard me say before, because I know you've listened to some of these interviews, that people read a lot of books because they like to be known as the person that reads a lot, or they do a lot of courses. And I know with my course, and I'm sure with yours, people are course jumping. They're doing mine this week, yours next week, and someone else's the week after. And what that inhibits is the learning phase, the integration phase. So my belief is, and I'm pretty sure I've heard this before, that until we start to implement it, we can't, and we don't integrate it. Are we saying the same thing? Is that what you're saying to me? It was a bit long-winded, wasn't it? But
no, it's good, because we need to, expand it and that for everybody who's listening. So yes, you definitely need to, and you may not need to experience everything, but a lot of things need to have some experience. It's a personal experience, yours. What's going on in your life that, it's completely different to the person down the road or the person sitting next to you.
look, we get back to timing, don't we?
We do. And, you could be 15 and something horrific's happened to you and suddenly you become this really wise kid, or you could be 75. It's never too late. Or it's not that it's too late, but your awareness comes when it's ready. Yeah, or when you're ready to make changes in your life. And right now, we're all being pushed. And hopefully,
Say more.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Hopefully, Mary will agree with me here that we're being pushed to, so many things are going on that we can either get lost in that, or we can decide, right, what's going on here? What is it I want? But we're being pushed to be, what I feel, squashed and smaller in society with what's going on and what's going on around the world. The world's got a lot smaller. And people are now starting to think, well, those that are really comfortable will probably stay where they are. And there's nothing wrong with that. But those that are starting to go, this isn't how I want to live my life. This isn't what I envisaged, are starting to wake up and go, what else is there? And I think that's a general progression that goes on throughout life anyway. That's a normal thing. But I get this oppression feeling that's coming and making more people compressed, and they're, wanting to get out or to do things differently and starting to wake up, if you want to call it that. But some people are confused about that, and they're not quite sure whether they should be doing it or whether they're teetering on the fence. And I think now is a really good time to do more on courses on personal development. I don't mean everybody to go and do lots of courses. I mean for those people that run these courses to bring them up, because people are going to need more assistance, I feel, in the next few years. That's just my feelings. I just with working with people the last few years, especially since we had that lovely time where we didn't move around much.
Yes, I've been calling it feeling and seeing a lot of constriction, just going more and more inward. And I think some of that came from that time of being locked up.
Yes, definitely.
Because we lost a lot of rights. And I know we're not going to go there because it's a political potato, and that's not the idea, but I think it's a good example, because then you can, from that time of isolation, let's call it, we had to sort of hunker down. And I've been seeing that in the physical sense of people containing and constricting themselves. And so what you're saying is that, and these are my words, this is how I would talk about it, we now need to expand and be prepared to look beyond just there. Are we saying the same thing?
We're saying the same thing. And the constriction, as you're talking about, is really all the layers of beliefs that they've had, or they have, that are now sort of doing this to them, or to people. They're not really even in touch with themselves, if that makes sense. There's so much, we've got this, we're on a computer now. There's so many things out there that tell you how you feel and what you do. No one has to think so much anymore. And that's also a concern, So we've got to get back to being human and to have our individual, live our individual beliefs and the life that we would love. And it's not to say you walk all over everybody or anything like that, but it's just, we'll end up with an early death. This is what happens with illness because people are like this and they don't know what to do. And they know they don't want to feel like this, but they just think they don't have a choice. There's another.
I think you've hit the nail on the head.
They don't know they've got a choice, and we need to give them an avenue to say there's always choice. Come and even just chat about it.
So that's saying what we're saying is they don't know what they don't know.
Exactly.
Because choice comes from knowing, getting clarity,
yes,
and formulating an opinion about, what I'm going to do is this. The other thing about constriction is I liken it a little bit to an aperture and a lens.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes you can only see this much through the lens. And when you're all constricted and curled up, where you actually are physically, but I've seen people
yes,
pretty, constricted, is that it doesn't allow you to see the full picture. And the other thing is that it narrows your perspective.
yes.
That's why I believe it's quite dangerous. I'll use that word. I know it's a bit provocative, but it is dangerous because then you risk, this is according to Mary, you risk staying asleep and never, ever awakening not only your physical being, but your soul. What do you think about all that?
Oh, definitely. I mean, that's part of my work is, I work with the mind and the body to activate the spirit, to get the spirit back, and then they can uncover their soul purpose and, get on with their life as it's meant to be. So definitely in alignment there with you. So it's it sort of all goes hand in hand. It's all one, and yeah, I'm seeing lots of things and I don't know what to say next. So over to you, Mary.
Seeing lots of things. Would you like to share one thing that you see, or is that too risky?
Okay, so one of the things is a really simple thing, because I don't usually say a lot of things about what to take per se, as in health-wise, but when people are like this, they need to relax. They're in that fight-flight permanent response and they can't unravel, when you're like this. That's when there's not enough magnesium in the body. I would say everybody in the world is so affected at the moment. Everybody needs to get some magnesium into their body. And you can do that through certain foods. You don't have to go and buy pills and things, bananas and, make sure you have enough. You can just look it up on the internet, magnesium-rich foods. But very important to start the process by just learning how to relax. You can't do anything while you're all bound up. That's the easiest thing I'm going to say, because it binds. If your body's bound up, your mind's bound up.
Yeah, it's like that clutter, isn't it?
Yeah, one reflects the other. You're covering, you're protecting your soul. You're protecting your spirit, so that can't sort of, be that happy person that you were. So everybody needs to learn to relax more. And, some people will say meditate, or some people say, I can't do that because I can't sit still for 2 seconds, or I go to sleep or whatever. That's fine. It doesn't matter as long as you're relaxing. You could go out and hug a tree. You could go and lay on the grass. You can stand on it with, no shoes on the grass. Whatever you want to do, just go with the flow. But it opens you up. It's helping you. So that's one thing that I was seeing. So I'm trying to put that in a nutshell.
No, that's brilliant. I think that's brilliant.
Yeah.
So apart from your gut issues, what's the one thing that drew the line in the sand for you about how you live your life? Was there an event or that you remember?
Yes, I would say it's when I had children. When I had children, I really thought, and they had a few little allergies that my mother had, and just mum had such bad arthritis that she had lots of operations by the time she was 60, and she was on a walking frame, shuffling along. And I thought, I'm not having any of that. So that was one thing always in the back of my mind. But it was when I had children, I would say that I thought, and I started to see a few things that I'd passed on. And I thought, right, okay, I've got to, really learn more and be more of a model for them. Don't say you can't have that. I won't have it as well. Just not have it in the house if there was something that they couldn't have. And it was only something simple like tomatoes. My daughter used to get a big red ring around here because of the acid, oranges, tomatoes, things like that. It was only for a couple of years and then it went. But, we all did it. So it's that modelling thing that comes through. And the next thing that really made me sit up and go, right, this is my life purpose, is when I had a near-death experience. But I don't want everybody to go down that track. Or somebody might get, really, really unwell, and the doctors say to them, they might even say there's really nothing wrong with you, and you feel like crap. And you go, well, there is. So that is usually the sign to go searching, go looking for, obviously your life's not working for you. So it could start with counselling. It could start with doing a personal development course. It could start by going off to see a naturopath, or, it doesn't matter. It's just the seed started and has started to sprout and open up.
That's fantastic, because it doesn't matter when you start, does it? You just have to start. And I always say start from where you're at.
Yeah.
And that can be the springboard. And timing, it's very interesting.
Yeah.
I find myself talking about this whole generational thing and modelling. With almost every interview, I go into that area, and I don't have that sort of agenda, but I guess you're making your mark, aren't you? You're influencing others to take stock and to, is it fair to say you're asking people to step up a lot more in their life?
Oh, my goodness. I mean, there's work to do, guys. If you want to get your life back, there's work to do. And I don't mean, go dig in the garden. There may be something you need to really change in your lifestyle for your own health. And then your mind becomes clearer, and, then you can put together what it is that you want to move on in life with. Most people are too scared to even consider it, let alone do it. So we need to build resilience. Resilience comes from doing personal development, getting your health back in order, so that you have the confidence to do what you know you need to do. And underneath everything, even though people are confused because of the way they've been shut down, we'll say that because that's what how we're talking about it. Even when they're like that, the seed is still there. It just needs something to push it, something to open up and just start the process. So like we said before, it doesn't matter where you start. It doesn't matter as long as you start.
I love the way you describe that, the seed. I went straight away to an oak tree. And I remember when I lived in Victoria, my neighbour had, I think it was 10 oak trees that were over 20 years old. You can imagine how magnificent they were. And I remember touching them and thinking how much wisdom that tree had. And recently having to cut down one of our beautiful white gums, and that was 80 years old and still growing.
Oh, yeah.
So, it's not about age, is it? I love it that we can grow until we die. What do you think?
We do. And I have a belief, this is my own personal belief. I was talking to someone about this yesterday, that, you know, if we really embrace our life and we live our life as full as we can, that one day we know we've had enough, and we can sit under a tree or whatever you choose to do and just say, that's enough, I've had enough. That, I believe, is what humans are capable of. We don't need to die from all those, you know, if you're in car accidents and things like that, that's a different kettle of fish. But what is in our own power, what we do to ourselves, with health-wise, you know, it may be that you get something, but on another level, you go, well, I've sort of really had enough. You know, this is my life. I've done what I need to do, and it's time for me to move on. But people have to be aware that they have that capacity as well. You know,
and choice. You're talking about choice as well.
It's a choice. And how awesome would that be to have the choice when the time comes? You know.
Oh, fundamentally.
Not everybody is able to, because, as I said, sometimes it's car accidents. But even if someone's in a car accident and they pass away, how do we know that they've actually realised that they've can't do what they needed to do? We don't know, but that's another conversation. But, you know, there's lots that we don't know, but what we are in control of, if you want to call it control, is our own journey. We can either dampen it down, and even if we've had, you know, childhood issues, and most people have, I don't think anyone's alone there, but it's up to us as adults to step up.
Absolutely. And I think that, I'm looking at the time, oh my gosh, how we can talk, Sandy, you and me. I love that. I love what you're saying. And I was just thinking, my gosh, there's so many other things we could talk about, that we could probably do that for another whole hour, because we've nearly gone an hour today. And I know that you have a lot of work to do, and you've given up your valuable time today. I thank you so much. Do hang around, because I'm sure there's going to be some questions in the group. If you would like to respond, that's fantastic. But thank you. I've learned some things about you I didn't know before, and that's a real treat. I like to get to know people better. So thank you for giving us a little look through your lens, quite a big lens, I might add, not a slither of a lens. And just an absolute nourishing experience, I will say. Thank you so much, Sandy.
Thank you for having me on, and for allowing me to chat.
You are very welcome. You're on the Personal Development Hub. This is Mary Scott. Do put some comments in if you're watching the replay. #replay. Ask your question, give your comment. And thanks so much for being part of the interviews, for your participation, and for our special guests. Have a beautiful rest of your day.
This week's episode has come to an end. But the fun doesn't have to stop here. If you have any questions, suggestions, or feedback, head over right now to Twitter and Facebook and like, share, and get involved. Join us next time.